the host of the podcast, the only one in the room. I actually just want to start out. Uh-oh.
That sounds odd. Sorry, Laura. Would you just be able to repeat your introduction then?
Yes.
It took a while to start up. But yes.
Okay. I have a terrible echo.
That is really weird.
Can you hear it?
Yes. It might be worth muting your computer just for now, and then at the end, unmuting it maybe? I don't know. But oh, still there, Laura? Am I still here? I just see a frozen Laura. Please bear with us while we have some technical issues. Okay, everyone. So everyone can hear me. I suppose we just have to wait it out while Laura comes back online. A bit unfortunate, but these things are going to happen with something as complicated as an e-conference. So yeah, please bear with us. All right, I'm just going to bring in Roifield Brown, who will fill. Oh, no, Laura is accepted and connecting, but I'll bring Roifield in just while that's happening. Oh, welcome back, Laura.
Thank you.
Right. I think, yeah, Roifield's advice was to turn down your volume. Oh. Has Laura frozen for everyone else or just for me? I'm going to try and invite Laura again. We're going to get there. Oh, Roifield, fantastic.
Hello,
so,
but
hello.
Have we got Laura back?
We are getting her intermittently. So hopefully she is going to reappear in a moment. For now, we've just got a lovely smiling face, which is great.
So,
I will pass over to you while I'll try and get Laura in.
Okay. Well, so sorry, everybody, that we've had these technical gremlins. But dare I say, it's one of the inherent problems of trying to connect together 43 different speakers from different bits of the globe through dodgy small little bits of cable. But so it falls upon me to fill in for now. So first off, and I know that we have some people here actually, in the chat room. I'm going to ask a simple question. What is the most significant thing that you either listened to or read or heard in the last, let's say in the last couple of years, which has made an impact on the way that you see the world? So Melly, Dave T, Rob, I'm looking at you. Now, the answer, what I can see here is people saying Frozen. I don't think they mean the Disney musical has been one of the most significant things that that you've read or heard of. But let's start on that. Laura, we have you.
You do.
You know what I think you need to do? You need to turn down the volume as much as you can on your laptop, because that's what's feeding back.
I think we've lost her again.
We've lost her again, yeah. And I think we might have lost people in the room as well, because I must admit, I went off whilst this was hardcore history, says Melly. Melly, Hardcore History was obviously the podcast which has launched 1,000 other podcasts by Dan Carling. And for people that don't know, Dan Carling was an ex-TV journalist who segued into podcasting in the mid-noughts. He's been doing it for a long time, and he has an amazing way of emoting. And I've worked with Dan a couple of times now. He did the Nixon show for me on 10 American Presidents, and his knowledge of Nixon was brilliant. And at one point we were talking and I said, so how long did it take you to write your script? He says, script? There is no script. I just talk off the top of my head. And it's not just he's just recounting facts, he's also giving you the drama behind it as well. So Hardcore History, fantastic podcast. Kathy Cox, you said that you're back. So we obviously lost you to another room whilst we had problems with Laura. So the question for you, Kathy, is what have you seen, read or heard in the last couple of years which has maybe changed or informed the way that you see the world? And we're just having an open conversation until Laura's internet gremlins are sorted. So Laura, yeah. So yes, that's a question to you, Kathy. So yes, Laura, maybe just if you haven't done so already, here you're back. You're back, Laura. I can hear you.
She may have turned her volume.
Have you turned your volume all the way down, Laura? If you can type a text message to her, yes. Moderator, yeah, and just tell her she needs to not turn it all the way down, just as much as she can, because it's feeding back. So you have a book recommendation, Kathy, the big one. I must admit, I don't know that, by Lucy Jones. So I am going to quickly Google that. So what I'm trying to do by asking these questions is very obviously not step on Laura's toes with what she wants to talk about. So the big one by Laura Jones, let's see what that is all about. I must admit, for me, I'm very much into Laura. There's the power of speech and the intimacy has been something of an utter revelation for me. And it says me, who's a podcaster, but orchestral music and somebody like Michael Nyman, or I discovered a fantastic composer just yesterday, actually, and his name is Bradley Farmer. And the power of music, and specifically when you hear a new composer, a new singer, a new artist, just to take you to another place, does take me to my closest place of bliss, basically. So that would be my answer. So Laura Jones says, it shows us both the best and the worst of our times of natural disasters, plagues, earthquakes, storms throughout history. I have to give that a read. You're giving it such a big thumbs up, Kathy. We're still having an issue with Laura.
I have news. She's just gone to get her laptop to try and use that instead.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm doing my best impression of a radio DJ who has to fill. So I will be talking at 1 p.m. Eastern, which is 6 UK time, about US and UK contemporary politics on my talk. I do a show called Mid-Atlantic where I talk about US and UK politics, and I have a couple of great pundits with me. There'll be Emma Burnell and also Doug Levy. And then at 6 o'clock, we're going to be looking at the future of Black Lives Matter in the US and the UK. What is my book recommendation, Kathy? I don't actually have a book recommendation. My recommendation is Bradley Farmer. You can type in Bradley Farmer. He's a composer and music editor, and his music is just utterly wonderful. Can Laura hear us? Laura, can you hear me?
I think that might be a no, Roifield.
Yeah, I think it is. It's utterly a no. What this does teach us, though, is that for you can hear, but
she can hear.
But your image is frozen, and we can't hear you. Can you say something, Laura?
I will re-invite her and see if
okay
resets.
All right. Okay. I suppose the lesson that we've learned in all of this is that we should actually have clips ready to go, pre-recorded clips, when issues like this actually happen. Laura, you're not frozen.
No.
Great.
And you can hear us? We can hear you?
Yeah.
We can see you? Fantastic.
Okay, well, I'll get out of here.
Now? You sound fine. You sound
fine.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your service, Roifield.
No worries. I'll be an interested observer from here on in. Take me off screen, sir.
Okay. I'll see you later on.
Thank you, Roifield.
Now, obviously, unfortunately, we can't give you any extra time, so I will bow out and let you begin your thing, and we will work it out from there. Fantastic, Laura.
Okay.
Has she gone again? Can Roifield, can you see?
She's frozen. She's totally
so
frozen.
Close.
Yeah,
we were so close.
It's very odd because there's no digital breakup at all. Like, her signal seemed rock solid, and then it's just frozen. It's just fallen down.
I mean,
Kathy Cox, I couldn't agree with you more. We live most of our lives in Plan B, but that's what we didn't do at Intelligent Speech. We were just A planners all the way. But as I said, we've learned a lesson for the next conference, which will be in 6 months' time. Now we've actually kind of realised that this does fundamentally work. So yeah, I'm so sorry that this has kind of happened on this stream. I think, Mr. Moderator, that unless she doesn't come back in, okay, wait a minute. If she doesn't come back in 3 minutes, I think we're going to have to call time.
We might have to, just because she won't have enough time to give.
Exactly.
I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, I suppose we could ask Laura to do a stand-in video or something similar, perhaps.
Yeah,
I
well,
well.
but because the issue is, it isn't just a case of her rebooting her machine. There's a fundamental issue with the stream. That's the thing. So
because it was working until she was the sole person on.
Exactly, and then it just falls over. Yeah. So I don't think necessarily that her even rebooting is going to fix this, because she's already done that. Unless she just uses a different device, and that's going to take time to get things all set up, and then we're going to chew into our time.
I think Kathy's got
the
right idea, or at least.
Kathy, can you remember what beer you bought for me last year? Because I must admit, I've forgotten. So where are you, Mr. Moderator, anyway?
I'm in Aberdeen.
Oh.
Yes, Aberdeen.
The Granite City.
The Granite City. It's very grey and very hot today, which I'm not a fan of. I moved to Scotland for cold. It's far too warm. I don't like it.
I fundamentally don't understand people that don't like warmth. I don't. Like, it's not. I'm not just saying that. I don't understand. Like, warmth is nice. It makes you feel comfortable.
Oh no! See, like, warmth is nice when everything else is cold. Well, it's a very highbrow conversation. Is this the kind of
this is hardly highbrow. This is hardly highbrow. Kathy Cox, I never get stressed. I absolutely don't.
Melly.
Melly is in the middle of Scotland, so just a little bit further south than you in Aberdeen.
I mean, Aberdeen is lovely, but wouldn't mind living in like Edinburgh or something.
Well, you hardly have the most Grampian of accents now, do you?
No. Well, I'm curious. Where do you think? I mean, we met back in Boston, but I don't know if I told you then. Where do you think I'm from, based on my accent? Yeah, go on.
Okay. Well, your accent says you are from the southeast middle of England. That's what your accent says.
That's very precise, and it's so wrong.
Well, I know it's going to be wrong because you wouldn't have asked the question otherwise.
I know. Yeah, I've heard every option under the sun. But no, I'm from the Isle of Man, so right slap bang in the middle of the British Isles. So it's a mongrel accent of Irish and Northern and Liverpudlian and everyone. And have we got Laura?
Laura, this is going to work now. You're on a different machine, aren't you?
I am on a different machine.
All right.
Yes.
Listen, you've got 20 minutes. You need to go for it.
I will go for it. I'm so happy. His computer is closer to our internet source. So
good luck.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for being so patient. I am so sorry about these technical difficulties. I know they are par for the course. I do not have my notes in this location. So if you see me looking off to the side, I'm just looking at my notes, not out the window. Thank you, Roifield and Benjamin. Thank you, Sam, for being so patient, for inviting me to speak. I so appreciate you. I had a 20-minute talk planned. I'm going to do about 10 minutes of it. And then since I have 20 minutes, we'll do 10 minutes of Q&A. And so basically, I wanted to tell you how I am a culture. I write personal essays. I'm a culture writer, and I am the host of the podcast, The Only One in the Room, which is a podcast that came out of an experience that I had at an event called Brave Magic. This is Elizabeth Gilbert and Cheryl Strade's retreat. It's a 3-day retreat in the Santa Cruz Mountains here in California, where I live. And this was in September of 2018. And I was so excited. This was my first event that I'd ever gone to as an adult by myself. I had always ever traveled with my kids or my boyfriend or my husband or a girlfriend. And this was the first time I was going anywhere by myself. So I arrived there. There was like a 200-person check-in line. It was a 600-person event. Long story short, I was the only Black person there that I saw for 3 days. And I wrote about my experience when I got back for Huffpost. And I wrote about it on Friday. I submitted it on Sunday, and Monday morning it was live and it went viral. I got so many direct messages and texts and emails back as a result of the article. And a lot of them were hashtagged the only one in the room. And so that's what I decided to call the podcast. I thought, or I saw a need for people to be able to, well, let me back up. What I experienced there was a lack of a witness. I could not look across that room and get that head nod from another Black woman or another Black person. I couldn't get that look of knowing, like, this culture, the dominant culture in the room experiences this as X, while we experience it as Y. There are so many just subtle, nuanced differences between how I, as a Black woman, will experience something versus how my white female counterparts might. And some of those differences are absolutely fine. We experience them differently. It's par for the course. It could be any kind of difference. But when you have an event that's that large with that many people for that many days, to not be witnessed is isolating, or it was for me anyway. So, I wrote about that experience, and then I started writing about other isolating experiences. The next big piece I wrote was about my ex-husband falling in love with a friend of mine, and the two of them having a baby. That was an intensely personal piece, and it just, but it all comes from these conversations that I have with my girlfriends, with other friends, where they feel like they're alone with something. And I happened to be talking to someone who felt like she was the only one dealing with a situation where her ex had a baby and she was having trouble moving on. And I was like, oh no, not only are you not the only one dealing with that kind of situation, but I'm going to write about this because it's such a good idea. I know there are other people dealing with it. So I wrote about that. I wrote about the fact that while my kids were little, I was in active alcoholism, and that was such a battle to get sober. And I just wrote about how difficult that was and what it felt like and what it was like. And I wrote about it for me, but I also wrote about it for any other mother who was battling any kind of addiction. Because it is, that in itself is just so isolating and shameful. And there's so much guilt around that. I wrote about a harmless crush that I had. I'm going to put that in air quotes, harmless, while I was married. And although it wasn't physical, the relationship that I formed with this person was tantamount to an affair. And I wrote about that as a cautionary tale, so that other people wouldn't have to go down the road that I did. So when I started my podcast, The Only One in the Room, I took the premise of these personal essays that I do, and I can't tell anyone else's story, but I wanted to provide a place where people could tell their stories. And so that's what we do. Our podcast episodes are like a personal essay from each of our guests that exposes something that they may not have exposed before. And there's this thing about, I have this kind of rule about distance between the event and my writing about it or my telling about it. So I try to make sure the same is true for our podcast guests. I won't bring someone on in the middle of something. I usually bring them on so they can be reflective about it and tell where it landed them. So, for example, like this next season, we're going into our 6th season. Our first guest is Tracy McMillan, who's a relationship expert and one of Oprah's best friends. So jealous. And she's telling this story that she rarely tells about being raised in foster care while her father was in prison, and then kind of reuniting with him after he got out at age 76. Very isolating experience, really great story. And we're so pleased to be able to bring it. But like I said, it's one of those things that people are going to hear and they're going to connect to, even if they don't have the same exact circumstances. We've had people come on and talk about tragic loss. Tamika Foster Raymond talked about losing her 11-year-old son in a jet skiing accident. Rebecca Gayhart Dane talked about being the driver of a car that was in an accident that took the life of a 9-year-old pedestrian. But we also have stories where we have John Cryer, who talks about, fighting wrongful convictions, while he's not being Lex Luthor on Supergirl, or Rochelle Webb, who talked about being self-partnered and how isolating that can feel, but also how empowering. So we go on and we recruit these guests. We kind of cast a season. We work in seasons, 10 per season, and come up with kind of a theme for the season. We don't strictly stay to the theme, but we do come up with a theme. And, then we go from there. And that's the fun part, because everyone has an only one story. Every single person has an only one story, whether they were the only single one, or the only, divorced one, or like me, the only one with postpartum. Of course, I wasn't, but I felt like I was the only one with postpartum. I was the only Black kid in my school. I was the only Black kid in my grade. I was the only one. I never graduated from high school. I never went to college. Those can feel really isolating and be really great stories for people who are feeling bad about their own situations. They can see that change is possible. Forgiveness is possible. It's possible to break cycles. It's possible to bring other people in these rooms. After I wrote that piece for the Huffington Post, 1440 Multiversity, which was the event space, the facility where they had it, called me to see how they could make it more inclusive. And I helped them. So, just one person putting words out, one person putting an episode out, a story out, can actually make a change. So with that, I'm going to be quiet and see if there's any questions that I can answer for you.
Well, I'm so annoyed that we had technical problems, because that's only half of what we should have had. That was brilliant, Laura. Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with it as well.
Sure.
Have we got any questions from the audience? Has anyone?
I know I ended rather abruptly.
I mean, I thought it was fascinating. I mean, I've just been sat here and I can't download it because I want to preserve my internet, but I'm subscribing to The Only One in the Room right now, because that sounds like a fantastic show, and I really want to listen to that.
I'm so pleased. Thank you.
So you at least, if out of all of this, you at least get one more listener, and it's me.
Yeah. And I will cherish that one more listen. Downloads are currency, right?
They are. Oh, aren't they treasured? Do we have any questions for Laura at all about this?
Any questions, any comments?
I mean, I could ask, of all, and it's a difficult question because of how many you've done, but what's possibly the most influential story you've heard on the show? If you had to pick it.
Let's see. Well, I would say that one of the episodes that we got the most kind of dramatic amount of feedback on was an actress named Annalyn McCord. She was in our second season, and she came on and talked about, she was the only one who kept her rape a secret. And she told the story of being raped by someone that she thought was a friend of hers and never talking about it. And then she talks about, self-harming. She talks about bulimia. She talks about using drugs and alcohol, all these things as a result of keeping that secret. And so it was so cathartic for her. She had not come on and gone and told the story to anyone. And that's the other thing with our show. We get a lot of people who have never told their story, who for whatever reason feel safe telling it to me, which is such a privilege. But the feedback from that episode was tremendous. There were so many young women who felt suddenly empowered to talk about theirs, and also didn't want to keep their rape a secret for as long as she did, for fear of needing to self-harm the way that she did. And she's beautiful, and she, runs this, my boyfriend's coming in with a ring light for me to make me more beautiful. But she runs this organization for young girls from Cambodia who have also been sex trafficked, and that's where she's brought her experience. But that was definitely one of, feedback wise, one of our most impactful episodes.
I'm not surprised that that's what you would bring up, because wow. I mean, I've already subscribed, but if I could subscribe twice, I would. Melly, we seem to have perfect minds because we both thought the same question at the same
Oh
time.
yeah. Okay.
But from just comment from Mitch, which I'll just read out. Thank you so much for this. What an inspiring story about your podcast. The power of storytelling to transform and connect us. That's so on the mark. That's a fantastic comment, Mitch. We've got another question from Kathy Cox. Do you come up with ideas for the season or get people who want to speak first?
It's both. Like sometimes we'll be after people because we know they have great stories. And we'll have, like, the season we just finished was hashtag relationship goals. And it wasn't necessarily a goal, but it was about relationships. There were a couple in there that were just people for whom the timing was right, and they could then come, and we'd already approached them to tell their story, and they could do it then. So we added them into that season, and they didn't really fit the theme. But usually what we do is kind of storyboard a season and create an arc of the stories we'd like to tell. Then I go and kind of cast those stories. Thank you, honey. I cast those stories, and so I'll then go after people, and it's a really interesting, long process. It's looking at somebody who might have that story, then for me finding a connection to them. I have a lot of connections. I was married to a director and a person that's now the president of a large entertainment company. So while we were married, we were together for 17 years. I made a lot of those type of connections. So I use all those connections. And then, but sometimes I don't know the person directly, but someone can connect me with them. I do a whole talk on how to get your guest to say yes, because it's such a big thing. There's so much research involved, but the answer to the question is I figure out what stories we want to tell, and then we go after the person who tells them. However, there are exceptions. So sometimes it's just the person with a great story, and it won't fit into the season, but we'll get them anyway. So
very
I hope
cool.
that answers the question.
I would say that answers the question fantastically. So what, just while other people add some more questions, what themes have your seasons had then so far?
We had our season 4 was Enlightened Men. It was an all-male season, and it was fantastic. And they were, it was everybody from John Cryer, who I mentioned, to Stephen Rifkind, who is this hip-hop legend, to Mario Van Peebles, who is an African-American director, and he's kind of a legacy because his father is also an African-American director, Melvin Van Peebles. We had Jeffrey Owens, who, if you remember, he was the Cosby Show actor who got job shamed for working at Trader Joe's. We had a psychic, Riz Mirza, who is this psychic. You have to hear that episode because I'm a psychic skeptic, but he was pretty convincing. So we had a Jeff Kober, who's an actor who's also a meditation guru. So we had all these enlightened men. The season before it was hashtag FemPowered, and it was all empowered women. And we started it with Gloria Allred, who is, the most famous women's rights attorney in the world. And we had, different people. We had one of my favorite episodes, which is Amy Bond. She's grew up Mormon, moved to LA at 19 to become an actress, ended up working in porn, became a sex worker and then a meth addict, and then ended up going to law school at Berkeley. And now she works at the border as an attorney with children, representing children at the border, making them safe. Incredible story. So it's all those kind of stories. And this next season we have coming up, we're doing people of color. So it'll be an entire season of people of color.
That's going to be, and how long is a season?
10 episodes for us.
10 episodes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it'll start July 7th and go through September 8th.
Well, I'm going to have that notify me on my app when that comes out.
Yeah.
We've got another question from someone who sadly doesn't have a name. And it's a very good question that I'm surprised I didn't think of. How do you decompress after such emotionally intense conversations?
Oh, that's a good question. Because first of all, because I am sober for 12 years, so any substances are off the table. What I do more so is I prepare, and I prepare by meditation. I make sure that I am well rested before an interview. I make sure that I've eaten something nourishing. I make sure that I have time afterward in case something is still, flurrying inside me, that I don't have to jump right into anything. It depends on the subject matter. I always do a pre-interview, so I kind of know what the interview is going to be like. And if it's going to get really heavy, I'll do more preparation in advance. I want to make sure that I am, at the risk of sounding new agey, like I'm a vessel for this, that I can really just be a conduit for this conversation to happen and not kind of get in the way of it at all with any of my stuff. So I just try to clean myself out as much as I can, and then, energetically, and then just be available for this person. And it usually goes really well. And any kind of residual is usually just adrenaline because it's so good, even if it's heavy, it's still good because, like I said, I don't interview someone while they're right in the middle of it. I'll wait until they themselves have been, further along in their journey. So if I interview people while they were in the thick of these things, it might be more difficult.
That's a very mature and understandable way to go about it. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, it must take an intense, even with all the preparation, it must take an intense toll. Some of these stories.
Some of them, yes, and I also don't stack them all together. That would be difficult. I break it up. We have light interviews in between the really heavy ones, and I have a partner who came in and put this ring light up for me. He's the producer. He's always in the room with me as well. So it helps.
You could tell he was a producer. The way he came, was like, you need more light in here. And then he turned off the light behind you. It's like, oh, yes. Yeah. Clearly good at his job.
Yeah, he's great. But it's also, he and I met 12 years ago checking into rehab. So he's sober as well. And energetically, we're a really good fit for each other. I'm much more type A, organized, let's get it done. He's very, very laid back and annoyingly so sometimes. But it balances me out because I need that. I need that off switch to be hit sometimes, and he's able to do that for me. Yeah.
I mean, unless there are more questions, then I think we'll bring this to an end. But
okay.
Thank you so much for against all the technical trouble in the world. Then still coming and presenting such a wonderful paper, and then being so open and forthcoming with the questions. This has been a delight. This has been an absolute treat. Thank you very much, Laura.
I appreciate
one final check. Any other questions for Laura before we bid farewell? Cathcart saying thank you. I think that's the general consensus. Everyone is so grateful that you've come to this.
I appreciate you guys. I really do. And Kathy, thank you for all your comments. I saw them and I really appreciate them. Hope we can connect in the real world at some point.
Okay. Thank you. Right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laura. Again, That is The Only One in the Room. You can find that on all good podcasting apps.
Yep. And you've got theonlyoneroom.com.
And theonlyoneroom.com. And you got a new season in just a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Laura. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.